Some dare call it conspiracy.
Welcome to the Some Dare Call It Conspiracy podcast, hosted by Brent Lee and Neil Sanders. After nearly 20 years exploring the world of conspiracy culture, we are taking our guests and listeners on a guided tour of the rabbit hole. Our mission? To discover where the truth lies. Hey initiates! Today, we continue our deep dive tour of one rabbit hole known as the Paul is dead theory. Did Paul McCartney die in a car crash in 1966? And was he replaced by session musician and producer William Shepard, as some have alleged? Let's see.
Chapter 18. Billy claims that the song Just the Two of Us is about Paul and Donna on the night that they died, not about Linda McCartney, as the public think. For me to lose not only my looks, but also my identity would be hard, and even harder to adopt the identity of some guy who's already well established. Doing it for a week would be a blast. Stepping into the role for a night would be more business as usual. We session musicians did that. However, committing to it for an ongoing duration, possibly for a lifetime, was most frightening. I was not sure that I wanted to do that. But he claims that he accepted the role if the Beatles moved away from love songs. It's all right. And we've got to think at this point, okay, right, some blokes walked up to him and said, I know the Beatles, was it Brian Epstein that went up to him and basically said, do you want to replace Paul McCartney? This will mean that you'll never be able to speak to your family ever again. According to your family will think that you've disappeared. You cool with that? You've got to make a decision now, right now. William Shepard had children. You know this because in reality, his son has said this is all nonsense. But again, it doesn't make any sense. So again, he says that I'd not spent the money to buy their Revolver album and couldn't think of any big Beatles hits before it, except maybe one that was not a love song. Really? What about Help? What about Ticket to Ride, which is about prostitutes? What about Yesterday, which you've already mentioned in this book? What about Nowhere Man? What about Taxman? What about Drive My Car? What about Paperback Writer? And this is the book that convinced Beatles fans that Paul is dead. It's slapdash. He claims that Band on the Run by, I think that's a Wings song, is about his turmoil playing Paul. Now, there's loads of lyrics in this book, and people that have read this book might be going like, oh, come on then, Neil, go on, debunk all these fucking lyrics then, right? Okay, go on. I want to see you prove that all these lyrics are not about Paul being dead. And I'm not going to do that because, well, you can make any song about Paul being dead. I swear to God, remember when I text you, right? Okay. What I did was I literally picked 3 songs at random, gave myself 5 minutes for each song to come up with an explanation for the lyrics. Okay. So I did 3 on my own, and then I texted you, if you remember, and told you to send me one at random. So these are the 3. These are the 3 songs that I just picked totally at random. Now, if I'm brutally honest, I think maybe the first one might have been subconsciously influenced by the fact that I've been reading this book, but it still works nonetheless. So the first song that I picked to show that any lyrics can be made into Paul is Dead lyrics was The Ace of Spades by Motorhead. And you'll be shocked to discover, Brent, that The Ace of Spades by Motorhead is very clearly about the fact that Paul McCartney is dead and was replaced. So, the opening lines to Motorhead, The Ace of Spades. If you like to gamble, I'll tell you I'm your man. Well, this is an obvious reference to the chance that they took. And he's saying that he is your man. He is Paul. Yeah? You win some, you lose some, but it's all the same to me. Well, one won because he got to play Paul McCartney, and one lost because he died. But they're all the same to me because it's the same person. He's playing the same person. Do you see? Okay. The pleasure is to play, obviously a reference to music and a reference to a session musician. It makes no difference what you say because he looks like Paul. So it doesn't matter who you tell, that's Paul. I don't share your greed. The only card I need is the Ace of Spades. We remember Paul was the Ace of Spades. Now, This is Motorhead, this is Lemmy and Motorhead saying that they're disgusted at the fraud of the music industry. And it's all for money. Doesn't that prove that Paul McCartney is dead? Aren't all those lyrics an indication that Paul McCartney is dead? Not convinced? Fine. God Save the Queen by the Sex Pistols. God Save the Queen. Well, Paul is, okay, there's 4 face cards, isn't there? Okay, which are the Beatles. Okay, and Paul is the Queen, right? John's the king, Ringo's the jester, what's it called? George is the knave. It's clear. Paul is the Queen. He's the Queen of Hearts, isn't he? So God save the Queen. The fascist regime. Convincing, isn't it?
How is he the Queen of Hearts if he's the Ace of Spades?
He can be all of these things. He's been both so far in the book.
Sorry.
The fascist regime. So God Save the Queen, which is Paul. The fascist regime, which is obviously the music industry. They made you a moron. That's because they turned him from a session musician, an engineer, a man of talents, into a cheeky pop star. They made him a moron. The potential H-bomb, which is obviously if anyone were to find out. So again, God Save the Queen. She ain't no human being because it's not the real Paul. There's no future. Why? Because Paul is dead. In England's dreaming, because this is the refusal of the public to see the truth. Okay? Not convinced? What about Bad by Michael Jackson? Bad by Michael Jackson is about how Paul McCartney is dead. So, opening line to Bad by Michael Jackson. Your butt is mine. Gonna tell you right. But whose butt is it? It's Paul McCartney's, not Billy's. And he's going to tell you right through all the symbols. Just show your face in broad daylight. Well, this is obviously a reference to the surgery that you had to have. I'm telling you
the truth.
Exactly. I'm telling you on who I feel. Who is it? Because it doesn't feel like the original Paul, does it? Because he's been replaced. Gonna hurt your mind, don't shoot to kill. Now, this is obviously a reference to both the car crash, but also the fact that discovering the truth will be really painful. And don't shoot the messenger, Michael Jackson. He's just the messenger. And then I think that this is potentially the most convincing lyric that I've ever heard. In Bad, obviously, it said, sham on, eh? Sham on. Do you get it? Do you know the fake name that Paul McCartney used to use to check into hotels?
No.
Mr. Ramon, which is where the Ramones got their band name from. Well, what would be a sham Ramon? Sham on. Because it's not the real McCartney. It's a sham Ramon.
Or the sham is on.
Exactly. He said, well, this is the thing, they're multi-layered. I'm giving you a count to 3. Just show your stuff or let it be. And this is Michael Jackson, threatening to reveal the truth. I'm telling you, just watch your mouth, which is a reference for everybody to see the changes in Paul's face. I know your game, what you're all about. And so that's it. That's Michael Jackson telling the truth. And that's why they killed him. Okay, so I then remember I basically text you and I said, just tell me the name of any random song, right? Okay.
Yep.
Any random song, and you
Yep.
you were listening to "Wow, I Hate This Song" by The Used, and I swear to God, this is what I did. I texted you back 5 minutes later. Went, "Yep, done it." Okay, so this,
Yeah, I thought it's best for me not to think about like anything, any other song. I just thought I'll just send you the one that I'm listening to right now here.
yeah. Well, I mean, and I was shocked to discover that it's about Paul being dead. Wow, I Hate
Okay.
This Song by The Used is about about Paul being dead. So let's just
Quick
examine
question.
the lyric. Yeah.
Quick question. Is there any link between Paul McCartney and Ozzy Osbourne?
I don't know.
Beatles and Black Sabbath, or because
I'm not
remember
sure.
Burt McCracken used to date Kelly
Yeah.
Osbourne, so maybe Ozzy told him what happened.
That'll be where he's got it. Well, he's an industry
link.
insider. He's an industry insider anyway. So this is
okay. Who knows?
Well, let's just look at the lyrics from "Wow, I Hate This Song" by The Used. The opening line is, "Bad songs sneak up on me like a horror film." Well, this is clearly a reference not only to the horror of the death and the fact that Billy's a better songwriter, but also the pressure that he has to deliver, after that horrific thing. The next lyrics is that every problem is another pill. We're all susceptible. Well, a suicide pill, death, medicine to make it better, potentially the replacement. Also, a pill in English slang is a boring or annoying person, and that is clearly a reference to that reporter, Samuel, who nearly exposed the plot. Also, pill, Paul, pill, it's nearly the same word. Every problem is caused by him being another Paul. We're all susceptible by being tricked by the change, but that's what's happened. And then the lyrics continue. We all know those bad songs, which is obviously from before Billy took over, and a reference to the clues about the bad thing, which is Paul's death. Everything on the radio makes me want to fucking bash my skull. What, like Paul's head in the accident? Hurt myself literally. Hurt myself literally. The next line is a reference to both the surgery that Billy had to endure, but also the fact that he had to abandon his family, but also the fact that he had to be the emotional anchor, absorbing the hurt of not only Paul's family, but the Beatles themselves. The next line is, every time I hear the key, I see you in the melody. It was never a part of me. Because he's not the original Paul. It's not a part of him. Wow, I hate this song each time it comes on. I hate this song each time it comes on. And it's just because of the reminder of the loss, his loss, and the loss of Paul. And then the next lyrics are, la, 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 make it stop. La, 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 heard enough. La, 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 holy fuck. I don't want to sing along. La, 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 make it stop. La, 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 heard enough. La, 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 holy fuck. I hate this song. And this is not only a reference to his role as Paul and the troubles of it, also the harmonies that the Beatles sung, but also La, that's what people from Liverpool call each other.
Huh?
Oh, you're right, La. It's a reference to Liverpool. It's a Liverpool slang. It's like saying love or duck. You call each other La. La, 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 make it stop. Because the guys from Liverpool, they know.
La, la, la. Only 3 of them as well.
Only 3 of them. Exactly. Now, obviously, that's all bullshit. But this is the point. Like, if you stare through anything with a particular lens, you can then fit stuff to it. That took 5 minutes. That literally took 5 minutes. And all the alternative is that actually encoded through all those songs are hidden messages about Paul McCartney's death. Chapter 19. So Billy claims that Lennon did not receive the telegram that was sent by Brian telling him about Paul's death until John received Brian's cryptic message when he returned to his hotel room at 3:45 in the morning of Tuesday, the 30th of August. Screaming obscenities burst out of him. Neil rushed to see what had happened. John said that Paul had died and was already been replaced. How can he be replaced? I do not even know who it is. I need to talk to Brian. And there's a bit of a problem with that, because in August the 13th, 1966, the Beatles were on tour playing Michigan. I think he means September the 13th. He's got it wrong, but let's not get bogged down. So he means September the 13th. Now, remember how Billy was struggling because he didn't quite look like Paul yet, because he looked nothing like Paul. Well, September the 13th, so this is 2 days after Paul McCartney's supposedly died. And this is when apparently, in this telling of it, John Lennon gets the news that Paul McCartney's dead. So it would be impossible for Paul McCartney to be anywhere, wouldn't it, on September the 13th? Certainly wouldn't look like Paul McCartney.
Right.
So it's a bit embarrassing, really, isn't it? Then, which I didn't mention earlier because I didn't want to spoil it, but on September the 13th, Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr were at the Melody Maker Awards in London. So this is reported in the papers, a swinging party high in the sky over London. That was the way Britain's pop stars celebrated the Melody Makers Pop Poll on Tuesday. Millions of pounds worth of pop talent attended the party at the GPO's huge new tower as this year's winners were presented with their awards. Beatles, Paul and Ringo were there to receive awards for 4 of the sections, and so were Tom Jones, Dusty Springfield of the Troggs, Jimmy Savile, Kathy McGowan, Barry Fantoni, and representatives from Saturday Club and from Top of the Pops. As the Tower restaurant revolved slowly, giving fantastic panoramic views of London, the MM's important awards were presented to the stars by Johnny Mathis. The stars chatted and enjoyed themselves at the annual function hosted by the Melody Maker and attended by people from all sides of show business, record company executives, people from the instrument manufacturers, TV and radio personalities, and many representatives of Britain's press. And that was in an article that came out on the 17th of September in Melody Maker 1966. All right, fine. That article says that, Neil, you smart ass. Like, have you got any other evidence? Yeah. So if you go to someday-I-call-it-conspiracy.com, and if you take the time to look in our Paul McCartney's photographs section, you'll see Paul McCartney with Tom Jones and Ringo Starr. And this photograph was taken on the 13th of September, 13th of September, 1966.
Is that Dusty Springfield with him?
I think that may well be Dusty Springfield with them as well. You can fake a photograph, obviously. You know, have you got any more proof? You know, to that I would say yes, I have. Here is a video of the event. If we stick to the theory that's been expressed in the book, he's not able to fully play Paul McCartney yet because he doesn't look like Paul McCartney. He's going to go on to have lots and lots of surgery. We've seen the photograph of him at the awards, and now we can see a video of him at the awards. So we'll probably put a link to this in the on the website as well, so you can just go and have a look. Does this look like Paul McCartney, or does it look like Billy Shepherd in, you know, with dyed hair? Let's just have a quick look at this, Brent, and you see if you think this looks like Paul McCartney. There we go.
Yeah, that looks like Paul McCartney.
Does look a lot like Paul McCartney, doesn't it? Like, so, you know, again, if we're just going purely by the internal logic of the book, which is obviously something that has been picked up by a lot of other people, for example, Mark and Mike, who did an entire video like expressing their love for this book. He can't have possibly died on September the 11th, 1966, because 2 days later, he's accepting awards at the Melody Makers, and it's on film. So, you know, I'm afraid that one's completely debunked.
Can you see as well? There's a Paul is dead video.
As that comes straight up. Recommendations, fantastic. Oh, marvelous stuff. So
I haven't even looked up any of this stuff. It's there straight away just from that video.
Well, it must be the date. Yeah, it must be the date, because the algorithms picked up the date as part of the theory, but ironically say that video completely debunks that date. Anyway, according to the book, John thought that the telegram saying that Paul was dead was a joke. Around noon, John thought he figured out what Brian was up to and laughed even harder with the notion that his questioning was over. Brian would show up at 1 o'clock and tell Paul that John was dead and that the new Paul was waiting in the car. There, Paul would pretend to be his own imposter. Everyone would get a laugh out of it. John figured out that Brian had some business to conduct and that maybe he told Paul about it, who decided to come along for a visit. The telegram was actually one of Paul's outrageous jokes. Paul was getting even with John for making jokes about the death. Oh, they do know how to enjoy themselves, these Beatles. It's fucking stupid. So anyway, can you remember that there's a Paul is dead theory that Stupid Bloody Tuesday from I Am the Walrus was a reference to Paul's death? Well, the Stupid Bloody Tuesday, according to this iteration of the theory, is the Tuesday when John found out about it, not when Paul McCartney died. So,
okay,
Billy explains. Now you know what. 2 days later. So he died on the 11th, and this is the 13th, the Tuesday, which we know can't be the case because Paul McCartney in real life was at the Melody Maker Awards meeting Tom Jones and Dusty Springfield, and Ringo Starr was also there. But anyway, Billy explains, now you know what is meant by Stupid Bloody Tuesday. Although it was about Paul dying, it was only the day that John was told about it, and he suffered all day with it. The actual death, as I explained, was on Sunday, 11th of September. Paul's family and then Brian and I were each notified on the Monday, but John did not know about it until Tuesday when he got the telegram and later saw the photograph. Chapter 20. So he reiterates here a point that we touched on earlier, that in order for Paul to die and for Billy to replace him, essentially that means that Billy had to die too. He explains, the song She's Leaving Home also references early Wednesday morning. It's about a girl running away. I am that girl, so to speak. And so is Donna. It represents me running away from my previous life to live a new one as Paul. I had tried to make it as a recording artist, but it was something inside that was always denied for so many years. So finally, I left my home sweet home. It must have appeared a bit thoughtless to turn my back on so many people who were close enough to feel abandoned by me, yet not close enough or good enough at secret keeping to be let in on my Paul's transformation. Some of my loved ones were badly hurt by my sudden disappearance. Right. The song recognizes the pain I caused them for my own sake. The conclusion, She's Having Fun, was about me working on Sgt. Pepper. There I was having the time of my life, creating the greatest album ever made, while all too many of my relatives were grieving over my disappearance. What a wanker, seriously. Like, I know this is made up and stuff, like, but that's a really, like, despicable thing to do. Also, like, bollocks, Pet Sounds is the greatest album ever made, and I will not hear otherwise. But also, all of this is completely disproved by his relationship with the Bee Gees and obviously his son. Like, also, basically, this would mean that there was no funeral for Paul, or at least no public funeral for Paul. Also, like, if the idea is that basically the way that they cope with their grief is by pretending that Billy was Paul, wouldn't a funeral for Paul, like, sort of in many ways destroy that illusion? So the fuck did they do with his body? Just leave it in wherever it was? Like, why did Billy's family not approach the police about his disappearance? Why does no one seem bothered that Billy Shepherd has disappeared? Like, why is it? Do you know what I mean? Like, he's totally abandoned, like, his friends, his family, and his relatives almost instantaneously. But yet, so they must assume that he's dead, kidnapped. They'll never know. They'll never know what's happened to him. But nobody seems to have chased after him or tried to find out where he's gone. Like, it's shite, isn't it? It's just utter shite. Anyway, now, Billy says that okay, we need to go back to Someday I Call It Conspiracy and look at the cover of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, which is picture number 9 in the Paul McCartney section. And by the way, if you're there and you want to sign up for our Patreon, please feel free. Everyone will think that you were probably the hardest at your school. Anyway, what Billy says here is that the flowers, spelling Beatles, if you include the sort of red clump after the S, can you see what it actually says? Be at Lesso. Yeah, I know. Don't look at me like I didn't make the rules. This is not my thing. I didn't come up with it. Like, apparently, be at Lesso. This is another thing. And there's this debate within Paul is dead things. Some people say that be at Lesso is where Paul McCartney actually like died or where he was intending to go. Which we'll come on to that in a minute. How Billy explains it, unless they read it here, they may never get the information that the stranger was Paul McCartney. The street that Donna appeared to be headed for was Lesso Street. It was on the return address on in the letters that they found with her. And that's why the Sgt. Pepper's cover says, be at Lesso. So also, if we're to believe this theory, this poor girl Donna, who's like hitched a lift with the real Paul McCartney only to die in a horrific car accident, they don't tell her parents that she's dead either. What do they do with Donna's body? Like, seriously, like, these are things that you have to consider. Like, where is Donna buried or whatever? So anyway, there's also, again, other equally silly theories. To those onlookers with more active imagination, the blood red hyacinth message read, be at Lesso. The obscure O helped form the name of a certain Greek island, rumoured to have been purchased by the Beatles themselves for the final resting place of Paul McCartney. So Lesso is this Greek island. This came from R. Gary Patterson, the guy that wrote The Walrus Was Paul. He came up with that theory. He saw that it said, be at Lesso. And again, that's the perfect encapsulation of how this works. He stared and stared at that until he's convinced himself that it says something that it clearly doesn't say, and then come up with an explanation that he's made up as to what it might possibly be a clue as to. Come on. Not convinced?
No. Like,
Well,
I'm looking up Lesso Street, and there doesn't even seem to be a Lesso Street anywhere in the UK.
is Lesso even an island?
But it's spelled Laeso, and
Oh, for
it's a
fuck's
Scandinavian island.
Not a Greek one, then?
No,
Oh, for crying out loud.
as far as I can see, like I didn't do ton of research there. That was just a quick glance over, but yeah, wow.
Hang on, I'm Googling Greek island Lesso. No, there's Lesbos or Lesbos, but there is no Greek island called Lesso. Unless, of course, obviously, after the Beatles bought it, they had it scrubbed from all maps, which, you know, is possible. Chapter 21. In Eleanor Rigby, Paul wrote about his own coming demise and how sad and miserable, how sad and miserably lonely everyone would be without him. Mostly, he was emphasizing how sad his father would be, having not believed him until it was too late to hang their name on another. During a visit with Jim and Angie McCartney's family on Monday, the 12th of September, when they all took me to Paul's St. John's Wood home for documents, the thing that won them over was that I sang for them. Listen to this, Brent, and see if this sounds like a realistic way to deal with a grieving set of parents whose, son died in a violent beheading less than 24 hours ago. Then they urged me to try on Paul's clothes. I objected, telling them that nothing of Paul's would fit, but put on a shirt and a pair of pants to make the point. He was inches shorter, and he had a smaller chest and waist. The cuffs went up to my arms. The open pants stopped much too soon, and undershirts, they were out of the question. Nothing could button or snap. Paul was smaller than I thought. At last, Paul's dad, with teary-eyed earnestness, said, "You can wear his socks. I will mend them for you." Can you imagine how I felt? They wanted me to fill Paul's shoes. They wanted to serve me for him, or do any last thing for Paul that they could, to have him continue on with me. Jim asked me to wear his underwear too. In my head, I thought, those most certainly won't fit me. But I just smiled. Mike laughed as if he knew my thoughts, but nothing else was said. 3 days later, Thursday evening, Paul's dad returned to Paul's house alone. He went through all of Paul's socks and mended as many of them as needed it. Paul sang, "Look at him working, darning his socks in the night when there's nobody's there." But he wouldn't look anything like Paul yet. So 24 hours after your son has died, some great big lumping Italian man turns up and essentially stands there practically naked with your son's clothes hanging off of him. And your only thought is, please wear his socks, because in that way, that will be a continuation of his memory. Also, I mean, this doesn't make any sense, because like looking at him working, darning his socks in the night when there's nobody there, that was Paul McCartney. That was his premonition of the future, was it? He knew that his dad would be doing that. Like, come on. Like, very, very silly. Like, also, again, isn't that a bit odd? Isn't that odd behavior? Like, as I said, like, Eleanor Rigby was written before he died, so it's a meaningless reference.
I was really expecting you to finish that story with, and of course, I was very, very drunk.
It's rambling, isn't it? It's like, you think that's offensive, put a pin in that. Just as we were ready to leave Paul's house, Ruth, Paul's half-sister, excitedly telephoned Jane Asher. We waited for her at Paul's house. The first impression also went well. They had me sing again. Next, Jane and I went to her house. She showed me their guest room that had become Paul's own for the evenings that went on too late to drive home. We were there less than an hour before we went back again to Paul's. Jane wanted to collect her things. The McCartneys had locked the door, and Jane said that there was a ladder in the garden and that she'd used it before on one occasion. I followed her through the yard, retrieved the ladder, and set up the bathroom window. I was already open enough for Jane to reach her hands in and then open the rest of the way. She climbed in and soon returned to the front door to let me in. That made her seem more fun than I'd expected. Having made it inside, Jane and I went through all of Paul's stuff. She took what she wanted, since all of Paul's things were to be left to me for whatever mattered to her, and I didn't stop her. Jane said that she did not think Paul would mind her stealing a few mementos. I didn't mind either. Paul and Jane loved each other very deeply, but when I stepped into Paul's position, Jane and her kind family, just as Paul's, yielded unreluctantly to me taking over all of his previous roles. Paul had prepared them all well. I became Paul to all of them. They were instant family. To the utmost amazed astonishment of many onlooking insiders, there was an instant attraction between me and Jane. She was a bright, fun, and very beautiful entertainer, the perfect match for a Beatle. I did love Jane for quite a long time, and it seemed Paul still does. That's a very flowery way of saying that Jane Asher is the biggest slag on the planet. Like, how fucking, like, this is not how people would behave. Like, it's just, I can't get my head around how silly it is. And the idea that people would read this and go, that's plausible. But what about cloned pets, Neil? We all know what happens with cloned pets. People clone pets because they miss their old pets, right? The primary source of disappointment from cloned pets stems from the misunderstanding that a clone is an identical resurrection of the lost pet, which is a scientific impossibility. A clone is a genetic twin, not a carbon copy. An individual's personality is shaped by both genetics and life experiences, including early interactions and training, which cannot be replicated. Owners may be disappointed when the new pet behaves differently from the beloved original. The clone pet has no memory of the original bond with the owner and will be unable to recreate that deep emotional connection. It requires starting a new relationship with a completely new individual. Some pet owners find that cloning keeps the wound of grief open as they constantly compare the new pet to the old one. And I would remind people that Paul McCartney was not a pet. Paul McCartney was a human being. And I understand again that this is made up, but the idea that his fiance, his parents and his family and his friends would not only be able to sort of like just brush that aside, but would embrace this like doppelganger who at the minute doesn't even look anything like Paul McCartney, and continue relationships with him as if he was Paul McCartney with no hesitation, no break. It's just ridiculous. It's just the most stupidly... Either everybody involved with this is an unfeeling monster, except for John Lennon, who was crying a bit, or potentially this is probably made up.
Hey, thanks for listening to Some Dare Call It Conspiracy with Brent Lee and Neil Sanders. Join us next week for the next installment of our Paul is Dead deep dive series. If you'd like to skip ahead and hear all 14 episodes of the series right now, please consider joining us at www.patreon.com/somedarecallitconspiracy, where you can also listen to over 20 unreleased episodes of our now Patreon exclusive series, The World According to Some, aka Twats. Until next time.